Welcome, everybody. Welcome. Do me a favor. Go into the comment section, guys, and kind of just type your name and tell us where you're joining us from. I am Zoe. I am joining from Minneapolis. So do that for me. Go into the comment section. Just tell us who you are, where you're joining us from. And whilst we're doing that, there we go. We've got Elsie from Toronto. Fantastic. Ruth in Ghana. Woo! Motherland for sure. Let's see. Pamela from Fresno, Texas. Hello. Ikea, Ottawa. Wow, nice. From Florida, Dr. Vivian. Let's go. Let's go. Who is here? Pauline, nice. Lakeland, Florida. Come on, guys, let's do it. This is so wonderful. Can we just kind of first just sit in the music for a few seconds? Wasn't that beautiful? Let's just breathe in that song for a few seconds as we're preparing to kind of just fantastic. And you know what?
Come on.
All looks so beautiful. The tiaras, and man, someone has the best jewelry on here. My goodness. Absolutely love it. Love it. You're welcome. We're just, just big fans of Queen Charlotte and Shonda Rhimes and her writing. And we loved, all of us, I believe, watched the series. Some people even watched Bridgerton before Queen Charlotte, so you even have more insight. And we're kind of just here to talk about it. One of the things, or the main thing that actually brought all of us here is because our beautiful convener, Abba, wrote something very powerful and very poignant on Facebook. And this is the result, that's the result of which we're here. And I'm going to read through it real quick, and then we're kind of just going to introduce our matriarchs for the day, right? So what Abba wrote on Facebook was very simple, but also so powerful. She says, grown folks who watched Queen Charlotte, a Bridgerton story, would have picked up on these themes, masterfully woven into the storyline that confront many women in midlife. One, being a woman in a patriarchal society. Two, the impact of mental health, mental illness on a marriage and on the family. Two, when marriage is slash was a disappointment. Four, widowhood. Five, singleness in midlife, loneliness, a woman's need for connection, intimacy. And do we have any kids on here at all? Because I'm about to use that word, sex, throughout her life. The heartbreak of a woman who held the fort for the family, despite numerous pressures, only to hear her adult children tell her, you were unfeeling. You were never there for us. Oof. Yeah, that would hit different. Still showing up for life despite all of these things. The importance of having a safe space of sister friends with whom you can talk about these things. And as I was reading it, I saw a lot of you guys nodding your heads. You could almost immediately identify with either all of these themes or one of the themes. You know what I mean? And so that's why we're here. We're just going to talk through it and have fun with it, right? And so I'm going to hand over to our convener, Abba, and she's going to introduce the first person who is going to be talking about the first matriarch or character, main character in Queen Charlotte, a Bridgerton story.
Thank you, Zoe, and welcome again, everyone. I am blown away. There's 17 of us on the line. And for all you know, we'll have a few more joining us, but this is really awesome. Any opportunity for sister friends to get together and talk about the things that concern us, the things that, are deep in our hearts, I think is a wonderful thing. Mental health comes about when we're able to talk about our stuff. And I think the power of a good story as well is to really highlight some of these things and give us a chance to talk about them and lighten our load and talk about them and realize we're not alone, right? In the different experiences we or people close to us go through. So I'm so excited for the next 2 hours about what we're about to do. And so I'm going to introduce our four matriarchs, but I want to say that this is not just about us talking. This is really a discussion. All right. But joining me are some amazing powerhouse women. I have Ruth Wade Kwakwa, who has dialed in all the way from Accra, Ghana, and she's our Queen Charlotte of the day. Welcome.
Ooh, come on.
Then I have another awesome woman, Elsie Dixon. She's joining us from Toronto, Canada, right? Toronto, Ontario, Canada. So we're not playing at all.
No,
And
intercontinental.
yeah, yeah. And Elsie is actually Agatha Danbury, correct?
Oof.
Yes. And then we have Dr. Vivian Yakpo Newton, all the way from Winter Haven, Florida. I'm saying all the way. It's 30 minutes from where I am now. And she is going to be talking, leading the discussion about Princess Augusta. And then I'm Agatha Danbury, right?
Oh God.
Hi. Elsie, who are you and who am I?
I said I was Agatha Danbury, but it's okay if we all jump into it. I'm sure we all have something to say about all the characters.
I'm Violet Bridgerton. That's who I am. That's who I am. And I'm Abaketo Anda. And so I'm excited to be here. So let's start off with Ruth. Why don't you come on? And again, this is not just for you to talk about. We're all going to just, comment, So if you do want to talk, I guess, Zoe will be taking a look. You can raise your hand and you can also type in a comment. All right. But this is a discussion for all of us. So
just before Ruth comes in, I will throw one lay question and you can put it in the comment section, and then you put your answers in the comment section, and then we'll go back and read it after. The first question for everybody would be, what was your favorite scene or storyline of the movie? What was your favorite scene or storyline of the movie? And you can put it in the comment section. And with that being said, Queen Charlotte, over to you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so first off, full disclosure, all the above, every caveat under the sun. I am not typically a TV person. I kind of dip into series, dip out of them, and I had watched the original Bridgerton, the first one, but when I saw Abba's comments on Facebook, I said, yep, the little that I've seen of it, this is spot on. What an amazing way to get women together to have a discussion. So you got me hook, line, and sinker. But that said, it doesn't mean that I even understood what I was watching, okay? Full disclosure. So I was telling the ladies before, I was halfway through Charlotte, this section, when I realized, wait, why are there two Charlottes? I'm so clueless that way. I didn't even realize why there were two Charlottes, and there was this whole throwback thing going on. So start again. That said, I love me some Charlotte. The minute she started climbing over the wall, I said, I am you, my sister, I am you. And that was right after she had argued about wearing her own dress. And Lady Fair was like, no, you shan't wear that dress. You shall wear the dress that we have picked out for you. I was like, lady, keep quiet. The woman wants to wear her own dress. Let her wear her dress. So the feistiness of Charlotte got to me. And bear in mind, I only knew the young Charlotte coming in. I didn't realize there was an old Charlotte. Okay, so but what I liked about Charlotte overall was that she was so well-rounded. She was a bit of everything, but a lot of feisty and a lot of speaking her mind. In the older Charlotte, it kind of came off looking like bitterness, but I get it. But let's not go to older just yet. So who do I see as a younger Charlotte? Feisty, she's sapiosexual. When Brother Man is, okay, I never remember people's names, so just bear with me. When Georgie, Brother Man, starts talking about the, Venus and everything else, she connects with it. And somehow the nerd in her jumps up. And I'm quite a nerd, so I gravitated towards it. I was like, you go, girl, be with him in that moment. Just rock with him in the nerdness. Very headstrong. There was, even though she's headstrong and feisty, there's a very tender and understanding side of her. Every single time she held his hand to calm him down, I cheered for her. Because what I do know from working in a school is that one of the things the teachers would do would be to put their hands on the shoulders of kids who were flailing and who were getting beyond themselves or having panic attacks. And I remember somebody telling me, just putting your hand on somebody's shoulder or giving them a weighted blanket makes all the difference. So every single time I saw her hold George's hand, I cheered and I said, you go, Miss Tender-hearted, feisty woman, you. So I like the two sides of her, the side that could fight and could protest and express herself, but the side that could say, okay, George, I see you, I hear you, let's work with you. So there was empathy in there. She wasn't shy to act pissed off about something. She spoke her mind. She felt quite a bit like a pawn, a P-A-W-N. For this show, we have to spell, don't get it confused with porn, but P-A-W-N, because she felt used. She realized that she was just there to be a breeder. When her brother had that conversation with her and said, sis, you were just here, you cannot run away because your belly is all that really counts. I mean, you're just here to be used. And when that woman, can't remember her name, spoke with her and said, lady, just deal, just get on with it. I felt for her because it was that feeling of being used, a feeling of being just a carrier. And I guess back in the day that was to be expected, but I, as a 2023 kind of girl, kind of reached out to her in that moment. And then it became the older Charlotte was just bitter. And I get it. And I'm not saying bitter in a way that you hear on the street when people describe a woman as being bitter and twisted. I don't like that bitter. That's a mean kind of bitter. This bitter is kind of regret, kind of like, well, here we are now. Look what I got stuck with. And it became generational bitterness because then she started passing it on to her kids and say, yo, everybody, you just need to go out and breed. Could you hurry up and breed already? And that really made me sad, the fact that she was passing on this generational ish. But that was for me, Charlotte. So there was tenderness, but there was feistiness, there was bitterness, but yeah, girlfriend climbing over the wall. Yes. If she hadn't been wearing a dress, this would not have been a show because she would have escaped. That's all I have to say. All right.
Thank you, Miss Ruth. I just want to add something. When you talked about her empathy and her tenderheartedness, for me, my favorite scene in the movie was at a point where George had been going through just this ineffective, just extreme so-called treatment that wasn't going to do any good for him, but they're basically torturing him. And then Charlotte, after not seeing him for a long time, she decides, that's it. I'm taking the matter into my own hands. So she makes her way there, finds him. When he sees her, he puts his head on her shoulder. So you talked about that touch. She'd become that safe place for him, and then later on, actually, at some point, like, but, the king is mad or whatever. She goes, I care not for his sanity. I care about his soul. And that was where you knew she loved him with just everything that she had. And how, and for a spouse to have that kind of unconditional love, right? I care for his soul. And I think that shows us how we should love, all of us. That's a lesson for all of us about how we should love. And I think, unfortunately, the times being what they were, there was really no effective treatment. So Charlotte, I think, did the best she could with what she had. And obviously, there was a price she paid for holding on to the king in the way she did. And for anybody who's had somebody in their family who's had a debilitating illness or gone through something, you realize that even as you're fighting for that person, other members of the family, or if it's you're a parent, the other children can feel that impact of, all the attention is going towards that one person. So it was a bittersweet moment for me, I would say. Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. Getting under the bed with him. Oh, hello. She was prepared to reduce herself to a child, to be childlike, just to be present with him. I thought that was incredible. So thanks. Yep, that was Charlotte for me.
Wow.
I'll add something. Oh, sorry.
So hold on a second. Elsie just raised her hand. So I don't know.
Okay. Okay.
We're definitely gonna have Elsie first because she has her hands up, and then Dr. Vivian, you would go next. Yeah.
I agree with everything you've said, Ruthie and Abba. I was just incredibly impressed and half the time I was watching this, I kept on reminding myself, she's a 17-year-old girl. She got into this as a 17-year-old girl who had no say at all. I remember that very first scene where she catches a glimpse of her brother and somebody else signing the marriage contract. And then she realizes this, and she smashes a vase in the hallway. And this is at the beginning of, as they're setting up the scene and the story. And as she goes through all these challenges, one of the things I kept asking her was, how did she get to be so resilient and resourceful as a 17-year-old? At one point I was saying, who's her mother? Where are her parents? Where are they in this story? Because this is a 17-year-old who's thrown into this soup of national, it's not just somebody who's married in her private life to a person who's dealing with mental health. She is married into the machine that is the British aristocracy. She's a 17-year-old. She's dealing with the patriarchy and all these men who have these ideas about how the kingdom should be run. She's dealing with these older women, including a mother who is fiercely protective of her son and also not very welcoming of this young daughter-in-law that she has. Nobody's telling her why, and she's left to figure this out all by herself. She's left to discover and then figure it out by herself. And I keep reminding myself, this is a 17-year-old. This is a 17-year-old. No doubt she becomes who she is as the older Charlotte. I know when season 1 came about, people were like, this woman is just wicked, she's weird, she's mean, she's disrespectful. And now we get to see why. And it's a wonder she herself did not lose her sanity. I think that what we see as this unreachable, stern, and friendly, and kind woman are the pillars she had to put in place to be able to survive all of that and birth how many children? 15 children? And carry a nation. I will say at the end of season 3, I wanted it to continue because I wanted to see, well, how did she, rule the nation? Because clearly her husband couldn't, right? And I don't know how many years later we see season 1, her in season 1, but it was a long time because she had adult children, But she lost her childhood in very traumatic circumstances, but damn girl, I'm like, you're 17. So anyways, that's my bid for now.
Yeah, that's a very sobering thought. I mean, when you look at teenagers now, and even us, all of us here, in our teenage years, you cannot imagine having to carry the weight of a whole, not a nation. This was, and they made sure to let us know it wasn't just Britain, it was Britain and Ireland and other colonies. This is like maybe a quarter of the world that she had on her shoulder. And so anyway, I'm just here to facilitate and moderate. So my thoughts are going to come in very slowly. I'm going to have Dr. Vivian go, and then I see Millicent's hand is up too.
So what I would like to add to what Elsie said, I give kudos to the brother, because the brother mentioned that when Mama and Papa died, I allowed you to read and educate you. The brother really raised her to be that woman, not shy, not just a woman that was outspoken. So I give that credit to the brother for raising such a wonderful young woman, and to, as an immigrant, just leaving your country to go to another country and be, not only go there, but marry into the royal family. And then not only getting married to the royal family, into the royal family, but marrying a prince who is not mentally well. And to be able to take all that, I remember her saying something, I can't quote it, but she said that if it's only 50% of him, I don't know if somebody can remember that part, she will still take that 50% and make it 100. She will bring him and her together to make that 100. That is awesome for a 17-year-old. I don't think I would be able to say that. But it's just amazing how she was angry, but at the same time, like Ruth said, she was compassionate. At that age, just seeing that I can be able to, take him in. And first she was upset about how they kept it from her. But like the mother-in-law, Princess Augusta said, I have to leave some of the rough edges for you to find. So I applaud Queen Charlotte, from young girl Charlotte to the adult Charlotte. And I'll say something to what Ruth said about when she was very bitter. One of the things that I would say is, when life deals with you, it takes a lot for you not to be bitter. It takes a lot for you not for you to hold everything together, as we saw. It takes a lot for her just to, maybe if they had therapy in those days, she would do better. I don't know, but it takes a lot for her not to be who she is. That's just what I wanted to add to Charlotte.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. Thank you so much, Dr. Vivian. As Millicent comes on, the other question I would like you to put in the comment section. By the way, welcome to all of you who joined us as the discussion was going on. I see we are about 24 people in here, so welcome, welcome, welcome. This is like a great thing we're doing. Which scene was your least favorite? I want you to put it in the comment section, and I'll read a few. Liz's iPhone, so I'm going to say Liz. She says the final scene under the bed. Oh, how sweet was that? Oh my God. Because I was really jonesing for like a story end. I was like, oh no, please don't end it without showing us an older Georgie. I need to see an older Georgie. So that was very good for me. So you're right. That was a great scene. Pamela says, my favorite scene when they were, I think it was everyone's favorite. She says, when they were under the bed at the end. Deb's iPhone says, favorite was when Queen Charlotte rescued King George from the doctor and his mental illness treatments. Was that not a powerful scene, guys? Oh my God. And for me, and I put it here too, was the Farmer George and Venus scene. It was the way she was quickly thinking on her feet. Oh my God, if I just called myself Venus, he'd come back to himself. And she suddenly says, I'm Venus, I'm Venus. And he begins to equate her to Venus. And that was such a, oh God, anyway, yeah. Well, Queen Charlotte over here, Ruth Kwakwa, she says, tending to the garden had me rolling with laughter. Who did not laugh at that one? It was also the fact that they felt they had to hide that conversation, the guilt of it, the fact that they couldn't even speak it out loud. And so I had to find very cute and clever metaphors to kind of surround it. Oh man, yes, I was howling too, as Elsie says. The quack psychiatrist had me so, yes. How much power did that guy want? Anyway, so we're gonna have Melissa go, and then I'm gonna wait for you guys to put in your comments about which one was your least favorite scene. Okay, all right, let's go. Melissa, you're on. Oh, we can't hear you, my dear. Uh-oh.
Oh, I was muted.
There we go.
Okay, so yeah, you ladies, wonderful ladies, have said quite a bit of what I wanted to say about Queen Charlotte. Of course, starting from where she came from, 17-year-old, but I have to say that she was a very well prepared 17-year-old. And even though Dr. Vivian said we should give kudos to her brother, I guess, we do. But I mean, all these women, Queen Charlotte, Princess Augusta, even the other two, Lady Danbury and all, Lady Violet, they're all victims, right? And especially with the victims of the system that was there at the time. A woman was nothing more than just a breeder. and you have to have babies, the right babies. You have to be married to the right man. And in a way, Princess Charlotte or Queen Charlotte, she was fortunate. She was educated, right? Her brother allowed her to read. So she came in, knowing a whole lot more, perhaps than the average 17-year-old at the time. And she just kind of walked into all this, the drama and everything. And she said that she had been lied to and all that. Yes, she had been lied to. She knew nothing of what she was walking into. And so that's the first part. And then there's a bit of acceptance where, gradually things began to unfold and she struggled with it. She wanted to go back home and all that. And then she finally accepted. So that acceptance part for me was big. And once she accepted it, it's like, okay, now I have to deal with it. And that's when we saw her power, her full power come to the fore. And she began to deal with the issues, accept her husband, do all the things that she had to do to become the older Queen Charlotte that we saw. And with that, I want to mention Princess Augusta. I know that Dr. Vivian is going to talk about her, but one thing that struck me was how these women, we saw the older women, like the much older women, and how steely, tough, and almost mean and bitter they become, right? In a way, that's what we see. But then we don't know how they got there. Even Princess Augusta, in the beginning, I didn't think I liked her, right? In the beginning. Then I realized, oh, wow, this woman, she had to do exactly what she needed to do to protect her son, to protect the kingdom, so to speak, to protect her family and their place. Otherwise, they're just going to become, the line was going to go to somebody else and she was going to lose everything. And in the beginning, it's almost as if she was mean to the woman, she was mean to Queen Charlotte. But I remember one point when her brother, had come from Germany, they were seated at the table, and she said, oh, how nice of you to come and visit your sister. Queen Charlotte, you are fortunate. I never had, when I came, I never saw my family again. So in my mind, like a similar thing happened to her, almost the same thing happened to her. In a way, she said, Queen Charlotte was fortunate because at least your brother has come to visit you. So something told me she went through the same thing, came from somewhere, came to marry into this huge family. The royal family just became a breeder. She had to produce an heir. And the things you have to deal with, the circumstances you have to deal with, in the end, you have to be tough. You have to be almost mean, but not because you're a mean person, but you just have to do what you have to do to keep a system going. And we saw Charlotte become the same woman. She became almost mean to her children, almost lack of sympathy, or, we saw the toughness that builds, that grows in you when you become that adult woman. And somehow, if we don't see the beginning, it's very difficult for us to appreciate the older adult woman who becomes so steely, very tough, like I said, almost mean. But then because we saw Queen Charlotte's journey, we appreciate why and how they become like that. And that's why I appreciate Augustus. That's why Augusta, that's why I appreciate her so much, because I know that she didn't want to be mean, but she also almost walked Charlotte's journey, maybe in a different way, but she also walked her journey. So that's all I wanted to say. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Nathan.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, I'm trying to figure out how to raise my hand. I'm not seeing it, so I figured I'd physically raise my hand.
I think Dr. Vivian is having the same issue.
But when Millicent was talking, it just reminded me as women, how many times do we decide, even subconsciously, I don't like this woman. This woman annoys me. This woman aggravates me, right? But until you know somebody and know their story, in fact, when you do know their story, you'll find that there is that common ground. And I feel like there was a message for us all as women that we need to support each other. We need to give other women a break, because they are going through their journey, even as we are going through our journey, and yeah, so it was a reminder to me, I don't like somebody. No. Let me just take a step back and allow myself to reframe and then see people for their humanity. And you probably find that there's so much wisdom and amazingness in other women that would have written off otherwise. So
yeah.
And I think we should definitely give Shonda Rhimes just a big thumbs up on the way she very expertly wove the different stories, so that by episode 3, you're able to see the flip side of the other story. So there is always another story that is going on, but the thing that someone shows you, or you meet a person in the middle of a story and you don't understand the other side of the story, and it happened exactly like that for even Queen Charlotte. The fact that the man says, "Hey, you're gonna go to Buckingham House. I'm going to queue." She saw that as rejection when he's seeing it as protection. You know what I mean? And so the stories are so different, and they're both. So the danger again of a single story, we must, as women, try to understand the other side of another story in order to kind of just be in the moment with them. So that was when you were talking, that's what came to my mind. Ikea, I see your hand up. I think you're
okay. Yeah. Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. So my comment is just really short, and I think it ties into, a little bit about what everybody is saying. I think just the complexity of the human person. I think, we're talking about her strength. We're talking about her ability to be what her husband needs, and to see beyond his mental illness and, think about his soul. I think one of the things that struck me was, and I can't remember the name of the assistant, the guy who followed her around
Brimsley.
everywhere. Brimsley.
Oh,
And at the
God
end,
bless Brimsley.
Brimsley was
And
a whole
Rodney.
mood onto himself. So at some point she says to him, and this is kind of closer to the end, and she says to him, "So did you never marry, or did you never have, a family?" Right? It struck me because I thought, oh my gosh, this man has been with you every single day, 24/7, and she knew nothing about him. But I think on the other hand too, it spoke to how, like, and then in thinking about her children and how she thought she had been a good mother. She did the best that she could with the resources that she had, right? But her resources were obviously limited and were so geared towards the king and the monarchy and the country and stuff, that even this person who was with her 24/7, she knew nothing about. So I think, it was a good way, I think, with the writers and with Shonda and the storytelling to portray the complexity of the human, person. Strength, focus on one hand, and then on the other hand, it's like, no energy to know what this other person is doing. So I just found that interesting. Yeah.
Right. Which kind of, and thank you so much, Akira, for saying that. We get wrapped up in our everyday lives.
Right.
Even now in modern day lives, we forget that others around us may be going through the same things or some part of some of the things we are going through. And
exactly.
I think
it's no judgment, right? It's no judgment. I think I think in the same way that you see her strength, you see her vulnerability. She was like, you understand just the different facets of her struggles and her challenges, her strengths. Yeah. Anyway, sorry to cut you off. Sorry.
No, that's fantastic. Actually brings to mind the scene in the church between Lady Danbury and Violet Bridgerton, when she says, "You're fortunate." And Violet takes that very seriously, like that's an insult. I've lost my husband. I'm devastated. You're unfortunate. How dare you? But then when they took a moment and then they kind of figured out the story together, there was a very beautiful understanding of, oh, I now get why you mean unfortunate, because you didn't have that, Lady Danbury. And, and it was just such a beautiful understanding. So thank you so much for bringing that. And all they did was take time to know each other's story just a little bit, I'm going to, hand over to you so you can introduce the next speaker. Oh, we can't hear you, my dear.
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, so I think it's a good idea to bring the Queen's best friend, her BFF, Lady Agatha Danbury, to be portrayed by our Lady Elsie Dixon.
And she dressed up for it too, because that woman.
Agatha Danbury was brilliant, and so is our Lady Elsie Dixon. So we'll take it away.
Can we take a moment to just acknowledge the two Ghanaian women that were in this series?
Oh, yes.
How powerful they were. Can we just take a moment for that? Great, fantastic acting and just such strength of character. You could just see it seeping through all of them. And you
But
Yeah.
let me just
And
say that
and
point out who was Ghanaian, right? Lady Agatha Danbury, right?
Yeah, Adjo Ando.
yeah.
Ajwa Ando, and also Queen Charlotte herself, the young Queen
Yes.
Charlotte.
In
Yeah.
the Amata field.
Yes.
yeah. And the
Yeah.
casting was brilliant. The young Queen Charlotte looked, I mean, the casting was brilliant. There were times, and she acted well. There were times I saw the expression of the older Queen Charlotte on her face. You know,
Yes.
she did it very, very, very well. Yeah. Sorry to cut you off. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, the casting
That's
was
it.
excellent. I think I watched
Yeah.
a snippet where they were talking behind the scenes, and the actress who played Queen Charlotte said all she did was show them a photograph of her younger self
Mm,
and insist that whoever they cast,
mhm,
somehow they make sure to show the mole
mhm.
that she had. And I just thought that the attention to detail
Detail. Yeah.
was just incredible. And I think that, you know, we're all talking about the actors and Shonda, but every single moving piece that created this, the soundtrack, you know, part of the excitement for me, the clothing, the everything was just on point. And it's one of those things that, you know, for me, even trying to figure out what song they were playing, you know, the twist, the classical twists they would put on these modern songs. It was just I thoroughly enjoyed it. Lady Danbury, my goodness. So let me backtrack to season 1, because that's where I fell in love with Lady Danbury. Her swag is what caught my attention first. The way she would hold her cane and sashay. I'm like, who is this woman? Powerhouse, who was able to stand up to the queen with all her eccentricities, who carried a lot of weight. And it was absolutely fascinating to see her story, because she too carried weight in a way that none of us, dear Lord, hopefully will never have to. And while I'm saying this, can I say what an incredible job the makeup people did for Lord Danbury? Hey, my Lord.
No, I didn't like that.
No,
It was
but
like,
that
I think it was, I mean, like,
They made him look as repulsive as the character himself. He was
exactly. It tied in so well. I actually had to pause and go look at what the actor looked like, because I'm like, I'm sure nobody really looks like this in real life. Oops, did I say all that? They really loud. But I looked and I'm like, he was so, you know, repulsive, powerful, and clueless all in one. Because through the storytelling, you realize just how reliant he was on her, and not just as a bed mate. I don't even want to use the word a bed mate, because she really wasn't his mate.
Yeah.
You know? And while I'm speaking on Lady Danbury, I know this other character is not one of the matriarchs, but I think she grounded Lady Danbury in a way that helped her survive everything she dealt with. Her maid servant, I can't remember her name.
Coral. Yeah.
Coral, who always had the hot water ready.
Yeah.
Oh God.
You know?
Yeah.
And it seemed like, my thoughts are all over the place, because I'm reacting the way I felt as I watched it. Because in one vein, look at the close friendship between Lady Danbury and Carol, in spite of the class difference. She was her confidant.
She trusted her.
She trusted her to the extent that even without speaking, she knew what was going to happen. And guess what happened, as you all know, when Lord Danbury dies, who does she call first?
Yeah. And what did they do?
And what is the reaction? And it was like, this is a plan they put into place, you know?
Yeah.
So the Lady Danbury we see, and I also think about the weight she had on her shoulders as the first titled Black person in this story, to the extent that all the folks, once, you know, they got the title and then the land that came with it, she was the first of everything, the first whose spouse died and had a child. So how are they going to do the succession thing? And so all the Black folks come running to her. It's like, hey, listen, girl, what are you going to do? What are we going to do? What does this mean for us? And she needs to respond to all of these things. You know, she was shrewd. She was very smart. But in all of that, we see this young woman again who, you know, is married to this man who's several years older than she is, and yet she's a powerhouse in the marriage. And in terms of what seems to be a weakness, where she literally just has to lie there
and look at the ceiling, she's the one who decides this is what we're going to do. She's the one who, when her husband dies, immediately props up her little son to say, okay, this is who you are now. And she sees opportunity and she takes them, but not in a way that takes people for granted. When she becomes friends with the young Queen Charlotte, she sees an opportunity, but she doesn't use Queen Charlotte in a way that is opportunistic. Even though she knows, like, listen, my friendship with this lady is probably what's going to keep us afloat, not just me and my family, but the people that I represent. But she was very kind. She also wasn't pushy. I mean, we know about all these of people who, once they come into contact with somebody who is high up, they start flexing their muscles and all of that. She wasn't pushy. She only went when she was called or sent for. But once she got into that space, she owned the space and she shared the advice. But she was very shrewd about how she did it. Again, another young woman. I get a sense she was older than Queen Charlotte, and she wasn't as privileged. So, and remember, these are two Black women, right? But she wasn't as privileged. So I think that made her a little bit more street smart. And that street smartness helped her as an individual, but I also think it helped Queen Charlotte because she was, the young Queen Charlotte had this friend who understood her, wasn't, boots licking, but also respectful of the role. At the end of the day, this is the queen. So Agatha Danbury was also very complex as a character, extremely complex, shrewd. I had a lot of respect for her, especially when I flash back to, the older Lady Danbury and how, how much weight she carried in the kingdom as an older woman.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't because, this is the queen's friend. No, this was Lady Danbury by herself.
Mm-hmm.
And the weight she carried even among the members of the town, and her relationship to, with Violet and all that. She was amazing. She was really amazing. I don't know what you all think, but fascinating character.
Yeah,
Can
and
we, sorry, Millicent.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. First, if I would indulge everyone, if you're not talking, if you could kind of put yourself on mute, just so that we're all able to hear each other, especially the one that's talking. And Millicent, I'm going to have you talk in a few minutes, but could you speak a little bit to, that's for Elsie, Lady Danbury, and of course, Lord Ledger. I see there's a little discussion going on in the comment section where, someone is asking, do you think she knew about Lord Ledger, which is, I believe we're talking about Coral. And so, a very funny thread going on there, but what were your thoughts on that? Because she actually made that statement. This is when it was time for her to be gardened. She really enjoyed it. And she, so just touch on a little bit on that, and then we can go to you, Millicent.
Is this for me?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Okay. Can I say though, first of all, I love the way the story unfolds and the dots connect, and you realize that, Violet Bridgerton is a little girl in the scene. I was like, wait, what? And I asked myself, how did Lady Danbury know that the older woman she was dealing with was the daughter of her paramour? And did she keep that hidden throughout the length of their friendship? I thought that was very intriguing. I also enjoyed the way, you see, so if you backtrack a bit, I think Lord Ledger's character was very interesting because his wife was some kind of weird. She was very weird, but as an individual, the little glimpses you would see of how he would push back with his wife and some of the racist comments she would make, no, classist, more, not race, it was more class, she would make, the way he related to his children and was more relaxed with them. So he just seemed a very likable character. Also, circumstances were such that he became friends with Lady Danbury first, and then the hormones got her ticking.
Mm.
So that he was the one to tend to her garden is not surprising because they had a kind of rapport.
Mm.
That bit of the story, I thought, for a deep theme, did not detract away from the wider themes that we're discussing, but it was very obvious that this was an important piece of the puzzle, particularly, and in spite of that, that's what made it even funnier, that when Lady Bridgerton was talking about the fact that it was time for a garden to be tended, that and Lady Danbury was clueless. She was like, "It's winter. What are you talking about?" And her reaction when she finally clued in was a knee-jerk reaction, and immediately, Lady Bridgerton recoiled and then tried to backtrack. And I don't want to steal the thunder of whoever's going to be talking about that, but it was very interesting. And also interesting was the fact that she took Lord Ledger back to her home, and all of a sudden the ceiling scene, when she's looking at the ceiling and she's like, yeah, no, this is not happening. And it's like, it was funny, it was sad, I was like, this is the ceiling she looked at for, I don't know however long she was married to Lord Danbury, and she needed to do a physical disconnect.
And took charge of her sexuality at that point.
Yeah. She
Just
did.
flying back and thinking of England. I am,
Yeah, and it's and I felt sad for her when it was obvious that Lord Ledger had to make a choice. She had to make a choice, and I mean, we only see the one scene. We don't know whether that was the one time, whether it was a relationship that went on for a while. But when the door closed to that, we don't know if she ever had anybody else, or that was her one moment of this relationship for me. And we don't know what happened after that. Did that open the door to her developing a healthy relationship with a man later on? We don't know that. We don't know that. Ruth says.
Did you feel sympathy for Lady Danbury though when she did have that interaction with Lord Ledger, or do you like, oh, this hussy? What did you guys feel?
No, you know what? Surprisingly, I did not.
No,
I did not.
This was the one time we all supported the side chick, Ruth.
I did not. It was one of those things where you realize that we have preconceived notions of situations, and we don't know the story about why people are the way they are. If she had been portrayed as a hussy all throughout, I'm sure our reaction would have been different. But because we see her as a victim in all of this, you ask yourself, did Lord Ledger take advantage of her? Were they two willing adults? Was it one off? So are we more forgiving? Are we saying that she's had such a bad, situation for most of her life that it's okay if she slips up? She deserves her moment of happiness. Are we reacting the way we are because what kind of marriage did Lord and Lady Ledger have anyway? All of those things are playing.
Lady Ledger wasn't nice, so
she wasn't nice, and then we're like, so suddenly are we saying that it's okay? I mean, I don't know the answers to these questions, but these are all things that run through your mind, where you really do not condemn Lady Danbury for that. But flash forward when Lady Bridgerton connects the dots, and my heart broke for that little girl because she went for a walk with her dad and saw this woman, and and it's funny how at the end it's almost like they decided they agree not to talk about it,
right? Like, we're gonna just not.
We know, but we're just gonna carry on.
Yeah, I actually thought Lord Ledger did on purpose. He didn't. I actually thought he kept walking with his daughter as a signal to Lady Dan. That's how
it was a choice. Yes, absolutely.
And then in the conversation, you could see that yes, he's saying this.
This is it.
Wow.
Yeah. I think he also probably had his regrets. Maybe not so much for the act, but maybe for the act, but also for regret, like this can't go anywhere. Because I think they connected on a personal level before they got intimate. But
Right.
once the intimacy happened, they probably even lost the friendship, because the thing is, like, you've crossed this road. What are you going to do when you bump into each other again? Are you going to kind of pretend this never happened? But you have a sense of loss that maybe this is what a happy relationship could potentially have been. I don't know. Very interesting characters.
Yeah. And then a couple of fun facts. I actually read parts of the book, and I don't know if those came out in the movie, but she was from Sierra Leonean royalty.
Yes, yes.
She came to.
It came out, yeah.
Also, she was dark-skinned, and it kind of, the book kind of almost portrays a while. So if dark-skinned, it was harder to, and even her husband too was from Sierra Leone originally. And so there was that. She was betrothed to him at the age of 3. He was about 25 years older than her. And I had a physical and emotional reaction every time he downplayed her, every time he was kind of stand up, every time he kind of blew her off or diminished her, it was something. I think also the point at which she says Queen Charlotte's brother proposed to her, and then he was making all these plans, I expect more children and you'll move here. And she said, no. I've never even breathed air that wasn't,
somebody else.
I need to be my own self, my own person, that kind of thing. I thought that was deep too. Yeah.
And I agree completely. And I think also there were some poignant moments where if it wasn't for all the other things, she may have said yes to him. But she had to think about herself and the fact that for the first time in my life, I have the freedom to say yes or no. But also she still had to take care of her kids. At that point, remember, there was no guarantee that the succession would be passing down to the children. And then all her other, fellow Blacks were like, all of that. Who knows? Maybe she would have wanted to say yes because she wanted to say yes and not because anybody was betrothing her to this guy. But how many times do women make decisions? And it doesn't have to be with respect to spouses. It could be with a job opportunity to go to another country. It could be, the opportunity to start a business, or the opportunity that I'm tired, I don't want to do anything. But all those decisions are taken away from you, and you have to carry the weight of other people's well-being. I think that was another opportunity. That was the thing. She was enjoying the moment of, it's my heir, it's my time, I can say no. But I left feeling, because she seemed to really like Queen Charlotte's brother, and he seemed to like her, but no was no. And then maybe he was being a patriarchal thing. You're going to do this, you're going to do this. She was like, yeah, no, I just got out of that. We're not doing that. And I like you too. And I like you too much to pray that you die.
But more to her credit, I think she took that decision more for the community that she belonged in. I really think so. She did it because she wanted the colored people to have a standing. She understood the system. She knew exactly what her moving away to Germany would have meant to a larger community of people. And with that being said, Elsie, thank you so much for your.
So wait, 1 second, just to piggyback off that point. At some point when Charlotte is like, "Oh, King George doesn't love me," and she goes, "Ma'am, do you know why you're here? Look at you. Look at the skin color. You're here for a reason. So please step into your purpose." And I love that. I absolutely love that. Yeah.
This truth is, stop being a child. You're in your feelings. Very well-deserved feelings, by the way, but
it's bigger than you.
It's bigger than you, and that's a message for all of us women, right? What is it you're going through?
The likes of Lord Butte we won't go there. But Millicent, you had a comment, and then please, guys, all of you that are here, get in the conversation. If you have something to say, if you wanted to add something to it, please raise your hand, and then let's have the conversation going. The other thing I would like to ask you, as Millicent answers or makes her comment, is this: what surprised you the most about this series? What was the most shocking thing that made you go, whoa? Please put that in the comment section for us, and then we can read it. Okay, Millicent, over to you.
So, Sister Zoe, so here's the thing. My comments ran through my mind like one comment per minute, like as they're speaking, I keep getting all the comments and all that. And so, so what I wanted to say earlier, is gone. But what I want to say now, like right now, is about Sister Abba just said, that it's not always about you. And I hate to bring this topic in, but I'll bring it 1 minute and we'll leave it there. So about Miss Meghan Markle and her husband. The fact that for me, it's like, it wasn't only about her. I hope they had stayed for everybody else. I'm going to say it, I'm going to leave it there. Let's continue. But I like that it's not only about you. Sometimes you make decisions so that for the bigger picture. And I wish they had stayed for all of us. Every time those days, I saw her up there on the balcony with everybody else, despite everything that was going on. Anytime I saw, I was like, yes, there we are, and then of course we all know what happened. So I'm going to leave it right there. Let's continue.
That's a very.
Let's move on.
Yeah, but we're going to move on.
Exactly.
This might warrant a different.
Let's move on, ma'am. Let's move on.
All righty. Abba, over to you for the next introduction of the next matriarch. Before that, guys, please, I really do want to hear from you. Put it in the comment section. Which part just gave you a shocker? Like, which scene did you go, whoa, I did not expect that. That was, for me, it was the first time I saw the kings behind. I went, okay, I wasn't expecting to see a butt, but okay, that happened. And I remember going, I remember going, okay, that's happening. So yeah, that was what, was a shocker for me. Okay, Abba, go ahead.
Yeah, so I thought it'd be a natural segue to talk about Lady Danbury's other BFF, who was Violet Bridgerton.
Yeah.
Now, sweet, sweet Violet Bridgerton. I actually really like this character. I feel like in the first season of Bridgerton, she was more innocent and a woman who was caught in the times. In the second season of Bridgerton, we got more insight into her storyline, the pain of losing her husband and what she went through. And I think I love how they developed her character even more in this Queen Charlotte, season. Daddy's girl, and as a daddy's girl myself, I really just love the vibe between she and her father. He was so loving, treated her, he saw her for her intelligence, for her personality, he didn't just see her as a potential breeding stock or whatever it was. He treated her like a very worthy human being. And I love that about her, about, that relationship between she and her daddy. And I feel like out of that, she entered into a marriage where she was so in love, and she believed in love and the power of love. And so I love that about her as well. She was bright. At some point in the movie, she's asking her mom, I want to take advanced mathematics. Maybe the cloud in her life was that mother, man, that overbearing mother. At some point, the mother says to her, Violet Bridgerton, that's too much thinking. Because she could have become like the mother, but she had that in an independent mind. So you could see there were scenes where she'd be sitting quietly, like behind the sofa. You couldn't even tell she was listening to grown-ups talk and then forming her opinions, that was kind of perhaps unique, for a girl of those times. But so you have a loving father who encourages you to learn, encourages you to have a mind of your own, calls you brains, sees you for all your skills and talents, balanced by a mother who's saying, that's too much thinking, a mother who is racist, straight up, right? Am I right? Mrs. Whatever. Ledger. Yeah, she was racist. Yeah. And then I think, this season as well, then it's, you hear her story. Her husband is dead. She had a beautiful marriage. She's presiding over her family as a matriarch of her family, has a bunch of wonderful girlfriends. But hey, she has needs. Girlfriend is hitting midlife and she has needs. It's interesting talking about her garden that needs to be watered. And so on one hand, so here you have, Agatha Danbury, who's lived some life, Violet Bridgerton, who has a mind of her own, but then they're talking, they're kind of almost very formal to each other, to the point where I think a comment came, Lady Danbury wasn't picking up what she meant by garden. But I think, it doesn't happen with us all, with our girlfriends, where you meet somebody, it takes a while to be able to really talk to somebody about the stuff that's really, bothering you. But if you persist, so I think the message here is develop your friendships, so you have those people you can talk to about those things you're going through. But yeah, girlfriend is in midlife and her garden needs to be watered. I thought it was hilarious. She almost asked the footman to lie on her. So I think there was not only the sexual need, but there's also even the need for connection and a warm body next to you, But you know what? Talking about it helped, because talking about it, made her see that she, clearly Agatha Danbury was somebody who also craved, some kind of a connection. So I think talking about it to our friends makes it better. And I loved Violet Bridgerton. I thought she was sweet. She was stronger than perhaps I thought when I first met the character in season 1. And she was resilient in her own way. I don't know if there's any other comments about Violet Bridgerton.
Yeah, any other comments on her? Pamela in the comment section says, my shocker was when Violet saw the birthday crown and realized her father,
Oh, yes.
Lady Danbury, the
Yes.
same thing he gave her for each of her birthdays.
Yes.
That was
that was interesting because in life, as you grow, there comes times in our lives where you lose certain elements of your innocence. I think it doesn't matter what age you are, and I think for Violet Bridgerton, that was certainly one of them, where she realized, whoa, my friend and my daddy, like for real, but the interesting thing is that I don't think she felt the need to confront Lady Danbury or to say you ho or whatever it was. She, for some reason, just wanted to keep the friendship going.
But I really do think that she wanted, on some level, she really wanted Lady Danbury out of her own accord to say, oh, this happened.
Right. She wanted to tell her herself.
Her going into the attic and bringing all those hats and then proceeding to invite her to tea and saying, and then showing her all this stuff. And I think silently she's like, just tell me. Come on, tell me. I know I saw it in your house.
I'm your friend. Trust me enough to tell me, right?
But then she
enough to tell me.
Lady Danbury, in classic Lady Danbury fashion, she's like, yeah, I'm discreet. This happened, and I'm never telling you. And so at that point, they reach an impasse, and she's like, okay, well, I'm gonna not push it, But I think
do you think she was mad at her dad? Did you get the sense that she was mad, upset, like, really, Daddy, in retro, though you probably didn't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it doesn't show.
Ruth has their hands raised.
Yeah, and so Ruth, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to contextualize that moment, right? Because we're seeing it on screen and they're all very coy about it, like, oh, that's my daddy's crown over there, right? And everybody's very mature about it. But in today's parlance, what level of shock would we have gone through if we went into an older woman's house and saw something that was a personal gift that we knew was from our own father? Either Shonda has no experience with this kind of circumstance or what, but it was cute how they played it out, but for me it was unrealistic because I cannot imagine I wasn't a daddy's girl, but my father and I had a very special relationship. But me seeing something that represented betrayal, I don't care how uptight her mama was, she was still her mama. And what that crown would have represented, what that thing would have represented was betrayal. And so I'm not sure, I would have probably fallen apart. So I don't know, a little reality check on that one.
To add on that too.
You should have said, she had taken some earrings off and said,
I know.
Danbury, did you really?
Right, and to add to it too, the realization you actually helped him to make this crown, because she says to her daddy, add some flowers. So it's not like it was laying on the table and she saw it. She helped him make it. And her father says, I'm making it for a friend, and of course she's forgotten about it, but to see it the way she saw it meant it was so special to Lady Danbury. She would put it out there. Obviously something happened. So that was, and I agree with you, Ruthie, that part, they didn't kind of, I don't know, the treatment was
You know what? There must have been a lot of confusion. I mean, like, because you got your dad on a pedestal, you don't see him as a sexual being. And then suddenly you're like, wait a minute, and it's also with my friend. And she also, we don't know what the age gap was, but it must have been significant enough for her to have a certain level of respect for Lady Danbury. And Lady Danbury is her friend. And now that her own garden needs tending, she's like, I mean, like, I'm sure a lot of things were going through her mind. And this is an era where ladies were expected to hold it together. Who knows what she went to do behind the scenes? And you're like, what am I going to do? And I think that Lady Danbury also showed some vulnerability because she probably respected, Lady Bridgerton. I didn't want to say yes. So when I was ready for my garden to be taken care of, your dad was the one.
Dad.
Yeah. So I mean, like, I can't think. I hear you, Ruthie, but I can't think how they would have two of them, considering the fact that the safe space. If it was another woman who had done it, Violet would have come back to Lady Danbury and said, "You would not believe what I just found out about Lady so and so because." That's her safe. That's her buddy. That's her safe space. But Charlie, right now, your safe space is the one. Who do you go to with that?
Yeah, but maybe she was ready. If there was ever a time that she would have been ready and more forgiving towards Lady Danbury, that was that time because somehow she understood Lady Danbury because she was going through her own thing herself. So maybe she was ready. Maybe, yeah.
Dr. Viv, you had your hand up.
My hand up, but Elsie said everything was great. So
you lowered it back.
Yeah, because I was thinking it was that era, now that we are in a different era in the, we talk, we ask questions, things that even in our own lives, things that our grandparents put up with, we don't put up with that now, right? Our grandparents put up with a lot. So in that era, like you said, the respect between the friendship, she wanted Lady Danbury to say something to her. And maybe that was what she was looking for. And she didn't. I remember there was a part that I thought she was going to say it because she started and then she just, let it go. I was like, okay. But she was matured enough to know I cherish this friendship. And, that was in the past. And I really respect that. Really. I don't know if I could, but I respect her. Or, loving their relationship and holding it together like she did. Because if she was angry about it, what is she going to do? Just be angry about it, not talk to her anymore. And it's in the past, I think.
And also, you're right.
Yeah.
And also, Lady Danbury wasn't flaunting this relationship. She wasn't flaunting it and talking about, oh, this guy did this for me and this guy did that for me. Because it's like that probably would have been pouring salt into the wound. And I'm going to just do a quick cross-reference to a book I'm reading in a book club with some girlfriends. It's Mariam Abbas' So Long a Letter. And it's a story about betrayal and polygamy and friendship also. And one of the characters in it is talking about, in this letter, is telling her friend about how her husband married a second wife. And the person the husband married is their daughter's friend.
Oh, God.
And so the daughter was extremely upset that my friend and my dad. And part of the reason why she was upset is because her friend used to tell her about this sugar daddy of his. Oh, he does this for me, he does that for me, and he does this for me, and this is his nickname, and he treats me like this and that. So when she finally connected the dots that the sugar daddy you were talking about was my father, that was a whole other different scene. In this one, Lady Danbury, I mean, it wasn't an era where you flaunted your sugar daddies or your paramours, even though I'm sure all the members of the town had several of them had it, but you did it discreetly. Maybe if Lady Danbury, everybody, I think Violet would have felt more betrayed if it hadn't been a discreet, and she didn't know at that point, but I think she's looking at Lady Danbury, who she is today, the fact that it's past, nothing can be done about it, the fact that, it wasn't flaunted. So as shocking of a betrayal as it was, I think the wound would have been a lot worse if everybody had known about it and they were talking here, the last person to find out, and and Lady Danbury knew Violet was Violet's father all along and hid it from her. All those nuances are not there. Maybe I've been watching too many Nigerian movies
but quick question, Sister Zoe, quick question though. Looking at it from Lady Danbury's point of view, she knew all along that Lord Ledger, that was his daughter, Lady Violet, and now they have, 40, 30 years later, they have this friendship. What do you think all along that she's been befriending this woman? What did she think? Her old love, that was his daughter. I mean, what was she thinking? Like, can we go into her mind and see how she felt? Because she knew right from day one that Violet
Did she?
was her love. Of
Yeah,
course, she knew
they-
Violet. She
when
knew.
they
She knew
met,
Violet.
her
Oh, she
and,
knew her. She
when
knew her. She knew.
She knew that her friend is now the older Violet. How was
Oh
that
yes,
story?
she knew. Yeah, she
They
knew
were all in
that.
the town, right? They were all in the
Exactly.
town. So
Exactly. So
when
she
Violet
knew.
Ledger married
also
Bridgerton or
when,
whatever, she would
Yeah.
have known.
but
So
also
she
when
knew
she
all
was
that.
to meet him
And remember when she
town.
went to the park to meet him?
Yeah, thank you.
She came. Violet came with her dad
Her dad,
at
yeah.
that
So she
particular
knew.
time. So she knew.
Exactly.
She knew.
Exactly. Oh,
I'm thinking two things. I mean, I think that Violet. I don't think she saw it as a betrayal. I mean, I don't know. Maybe she did, but my thinking was that she did want Lady Danbury to open up to her. I think the putting of the things out was sort of saying that I know if you're ready, I'm willing to hear it. But Lady Danbury herself, I guess, being older, respecting both Violet and her love for Violet's dad, she had no intention of talking about it. I mean, I don't think, I'm wondering if it had been somebody else and not Violet's dad, she would even have gone into details about the relationship. I think she would have kept it because these relationships are secret and that, you know, that you respect the person you had the relationship with. So I don't think she would ever have talked. And I think that Violet knew her dad and loved her dad enough not to say that she would not have been surprised or upset, but to understand. And I just kind of felt that when she put the things out, as telling Lady Danbury, and I know, I understand, if you're ready to talk, I'm here to listen. And Lady Danbury sort of politely closed her down, saying, I'm not going to talk about it. You know, I love your dad. I love our relationship. I'm not going to go into it. This is, you know, this is it. This is the best you know. This is the most you know about what went on.
And the fact that she wasn't afraid to actually tell Violet about the queen's brother. She said, did I ever tell you about when, you know, Prince so and so? So she tells, but she shares that, but not this one, which kind of tells you, okay, this is not a subject she wants to go in. But what we
Talk
wanted to
about.
do, yeah, what I thought
Because
we should do-
because I mean, I think it will hurt her. She knows it will. I mean, whatever. What are you going to say to a daughter about a relationship with a father that will not hurt, even though the daughter is your friend? So you won't say it. You want to keep your relationship. You want to honor the father. You won't say it. So Lady Danbury is just too smart, too sophisticated for that. She will not say a word. Yeah.
So here's something I thought we should do real quick. There's 27 of us in here, and maybe only 5 or 6 of us are talking. And I see the name. So I'm gonna do like a quick round. Everyone who has spoken so far, maybe I would very humbly say, don't speak yet. And we would ask a very simple question. And everybody else who hasn't spoken, I'll literally just call out your name. And if you could just come on and kind of just say something, would that be okay? Give me a thumbs up if that's okay. Just put it in the comment section with an emoji or something. Just say, that's okay, that's okay. I just need 3 of those thumbs up and we're good to go. Actually, if I don't get 3, I'll still go. So, okay. So, the question is very simple. If you could ask Shonda Rhimes anything, what would it be? Debs, I'm going to go with you. I see Debs iPhone 2. 1 sentence. Could you just, we're not going to answer the questions, just ask the question. There you go.
What was the question again? Sorry.
If you could ask Shonda Rhimes anything, what would the question be?
Princess.
Just how she became interested in the storyline.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Yes, Millicent, I know we're going to leave that for the last because I want everybody. All righty. So thank you so much, Debs. Margie, yourself.
Yes, hi. Hello.
What would be your question for Miss Shonda Rhimes?
What's the next move? Are you going to write about another Bridgerton character?
That's a good one. That's a good one. Thank you. Thank you. It was good to hear your voice and Deb's too. See, that was nice, right, guys? All right, Abaya boy, let's go. What's the question? Hi, Abba.
Hello, Miss Ivy, are you there? Abaya Boaba. That's Miss Ivy. Are you there? Can you still hear? Did you ask a question?
Okay, so we're gonna come back around because we're trying to, this is a quick round. Pamela, I can see your beautiful face. You're muted.
I guess I would ask the same thing. Will she concentrate on somebody else, like Lady?
Hi.
Yes, hi, Miss Abaya Boaba.
But first,
Yes,
Oh,
I would ask.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Pamela, for your question. Thank you. All righty, and you look very nice. Abba, let's go.
Yes, I would ask Shonda Rhimes, what inspired that story? Because I just started watching anyway. I haven't gotten anywhere yet. I just watched the first episode. So,
wow.
And it's intriguing. It's very much intriguing. So I'm here to study the characters.
Fantastic.
And the preview is actually helping me out. So it's giving me a lot of suspense. So
Nice.
I'm sure I'm gonna enjoy it.
Yeah, you definitely will. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Ivy. D. D. Okay, we're gonna move on to Ama B. Hi, Ama B. Okay, we'll give it a few minutes and then we'll move on. Sante. Hopefully I'm saying that name right. All righty. Liz.
I would ask her if she's going to, I would like to see the relationships of all the other people. For example, Brimsley's relationship, more about what happened. The scene where he's dancing alone at the end was special, but just,
wasn't it?
yes,
Yeah.
but just, I would like to see these on each of those characters within.
Wow, thank you so much for that question. Sante, I think I see that you're unmuted now.
Yes. I would want to know more about Queen Charlotte's kids. She had so many kids, and some had kids too, but she was still looking for an heir. So I just want to know more about the kids.
Wow. Yeah, I think that maybe Shonda has just struck real gold. She can keep doing these stories for like years and we'll all keep watching. Angel. Hi, Angel.
Hi.
Hi.
Sorry, this is my first contact with it, but I'm so intrigued. You ladies have done such a fabulous job. I feel like I've seen it and I'm really enjoying it. I'm glued to it. And if I had to ask a question, it would be, how did you come up with this? You know, it's so interesting. I don't know what runs in the mind, but I'm loving it.
Fantastic. Now I know who Angel is.
I know you know.
She's a real life angel.
Real life undercover CIA operative right there. Quiet. And you're so right. What goes on in her mind? Isn't that crazy? And I liked how she would always say a gentle reader. It was both sarcastic, but also saying, don't come for me, okay? I'm taking a lot of liberties. Just leave me alone, I'm a writer. And it was so beautiful. Nanama Adumbwachi, sorry. Hi, Nanama. Okay, we're gonna move on to Pauline. Pauline. All righty. Is Abba's autopilot still Abba?
Yes, it is.
Okay,
you know what that is.
I know. I was like, okay. How about Akosia? All right, we're gonna move on to Florence Osei Givens. I really like your name.
Yes, newly minted doctor, my niece, whose birthday it is today. Happy
Thank you.
Happy birthday.
Thank you guys. I appreciate it. I'm glad I got to spend my birthday listening to this great conversation. I was gonna say a question I would ask would probably be like the race relations. I feel like it's really touched upon in like every season. And I was hoping that this season she would touch upon it a little bit more than she did, but I'm still glad it was touched upon. So I'd love to like ask her more and kind of delve into like the I hope she does that in future seasons, but kind of go into depth about how important it is in society, especially a society like that. So yeah.
No, it's very true. This great experiment, right? The great experiment, which almost, it wasn't planned, but then they had to kind of regroup and say, let's make it a great experiment. So it was interesting. You're right.
Wow. Fantastic. And Risi did send in, she says that, hi ladies, I'm doing crisis management. I am listening in. So we're going to let Risi kind of off the hook on this one. And then lastly, our very own and dear, beautiful Alyssa. And hi, Alyssa.
Hi.
Hi.
I think the question that I would like to ask Shonda is honestly not as deep as the other ones, but how the process of how she Shondifies all of her leading men. Because there's just something about the casting for her leading men. I don't know if it's the writing, the actors themselves, but she just has some magical power there.
Ooh, but
Shondifies
yeah,
her
these
leading
are the
men.
generational thing. She literally just went Shondify, and I'm like, yes, you can literally see the gap widen like that. Thank you so much, Alyssa. That's a good question. I would definitely like to ask her that too. Yes, and for me, I would have probably just asked her what her writing process is, as a filmmaker. But so thank you guys for indulging us and being a part of the
Hello.
conversation.
Hello.
Yes, hi.
Hi, this is Akosia.
Hi,
I'm so
Akosia.
sorry.
That's okay.
I'm sorry, I'm walking outside, so I had to kind of like stand somewhere where it's a little bit quiet. But ladies, kudos to the great job you're doing. This is very interesting. I must say, Ms. Zoe, you actually answered my question that I have to ask what's her name, the writer, because there is so much plot in this that she could actually make a career out of this for the rest of her life. That she can tell, like every one story can be told in this whole book. And so I hope that that's what she does, because we can all relate to it. There is some aspect of it that affect all of us, our lives. As I'll just make a quick comment, because when you were talking about the ladies and how how all these ladies coexist, we as women, we do the same thing. Sometimes we have to be extra. There are some women in the family. There's always a woman in the family who has to be like the upper hand, like Lady Augusta. Is it the princess or prince? Yeah, but
princess.
Princess Augusta. There is one of us in every family. We have to carry the whole family to where we have to go. So we become strict. We become very tough, and then it looks, but we are holding the fort
together.
So I think, yes, in this storyline, we are all in it. And that's the beauty part of it. And I'll leave it here because it's getting very loud. Thank you. Thank you so much.
So much. Thank you. All righty. So I'm going to move on to Vivian, Dr. Vivian, and she's going to give us her part of the last matriarch, and that would be Princess Augusta. I have a particular question for that. Why is she princess and not queen? Didn't she get married to the queen? But
yeah, I'll say all that in mine.
Exactly. I figured you would. So let's go.
So Princess Augusta was also from Germany, by the way. So I did my reading.
Oh.
She was also from Germany. She was brought to marry Prince Frederick. When she was 16, she was also a teenager. And Prince Frederick, she didn't become a queen consort or queen because Prince Frederick was a drunk, a gambler, cheating. So he didn't accede to the throne. He died. And then George was the one who succeeded the father, right? So you can imagine Princess Augusta going through similar things that Charlotte is going through, but hers was on a different scale. At least George loves Charlotte. He just has his mental issues, right? But she was going through this thing with a husband who was cheating, drinking, gambling, and doing all of this stuff. So you can see where her meanness. I didn't like her at first. I did not like her at all, because when Charlotte came and she was like, your hips, let me see. Okay, you can bear children. Let me see your teeth. Let me see that. I was like, oh, I don't like her. But as the series progressed, I saw a mother. I saw a woman who has gone through a lot. I didn't even know about Prince Frederick. You know, I later on read about that because I didn't really pay attention to that. But when she was talking to Lady Danbury, she said a few of the things she has been through. And one of the things she told her, I think I wrote it, she said, cover your bruises and endure. Do not lose control of your faith. I was like, that's a lot to cover your bruises. So in those days, you know how it is. You take one for the team, you know, you cover your bruises. It's duty. You are here to perform a duty and nothing about your feelings and how you're feeling. That's not what they do in those days. And one of the things, so that's why she's still Princess Augusta. She was never given the title of queen consort, and then she never became a queen herself. And then I think I wrote something else down about her. It was interesting to dig into her because I didn't know she was also from Germany. We know the royal family, partly they are from Germany, right? But I didn't know that. And then to know that her marriage, she had how many children? 9 children, I think. And George was the one who became king. And so one of the things too that I connected with her on was motherhood. To see her trying her best to get cure for her son. You know, I remember her telling Charlotte, if you are blessed with children and something is wrong with your child, you will go to the ends of the world to find cure. It's not like she was happy to have her son being tortured, but she was thinking she was getting her son healed. So she was saying those things to Charlotte, saying that if you have children and something is wrong, and like Abba said in the beginning, when you can see that in a family, when there's a child with any issue, you know, if be that they are sick or they have any other issues, the parents put more effort into that child. It's just something we all would do. So I began to love her as I went along. I was like, okay, this is a mother. This is a woman who has gone through. And then she had to make sure that George was okay to ascend to the throne, right? She has to make sure that George was able to speak in Parliament. George was able to do this, and married, you know, found a bride for George, you know, from her home country, you know, making sure that that person will be able to take on what she was already doing. I remember there was a part that really broke my heart when she called George in to say that we found you a bride. And George was about to break. Anytime he's about to break, you could see he will be twitching, his hands will be twitching. And then he started talking about Venice or whatever, and he began to cry, and the mother held him, and they both fell, you know, just knelt down, and he was just crying. That was when I connected with her more. I was like, oh, wow. So this woman that I was judging all along, like we said, we have to tell stories. We have to dig. If I didn't dig deep into her story, I wouldn't have known that she was married to this, you know, prince that was drinking and womanizing and doing all this stuff. So can you imagine carrying all that? Then now you're carrying the world on your shoulder. From the day that George was born, you have to groom him to become king. And then he's mad, you know, then he has mental issues. That's a lot. I see Melissa and Sam. That's a lot for one woman to carry. So I really appreciated her after knowing that. And then one of the things she did too was those men, I don't know who they are called. Anybody can chime in. The men that always are with Princess Augusta.
The advisors, Lord Bute.
Oh my God, they put pressure on her. To is the woman pregnant yet? And she has to go out now to fish information from Lady Danbury to make it look like, okay, I'm talking to my son and this is what is going on, really. So it's a lot. Yeah, Millicent, you can.
She knew how to play hardball. So so much she goes, I'm sorry, I'm just a woman. She didn't want to answer the question.
I can't remember. Yeah, but if you look at her, she's also, you know, she was like, she was before Queen Charlotte, she carried everything on her shoulder because her son, you know, you don't know when he was going to break. You don't know when that was going to happen and he couldn't be able to perform. So the mother has to be on her toes at all times. And when he moved into the house with Queen Charlotte in Buckingham House, right? The mother made sure that they put the knives and everything that will harm her son away without telling Charlotte that, because Charlotte didn't know at the time that this is what was happening to her son. But can you imagine all that pressure? We talk about little pressures today. Can you imagine thinking ahead that, okay, if he's moving there, I need to put everything away. We need to seal the windows. We need to, that's a lot for a mother to carry, you know? So anyone can chime in. There's just a lot about this woman. I love her.
Yeah. So honestly, that hand being up was a mistake. I wasn't planning on it. It doesn't mean I don't have anything to say, because Princess Augusta, I'm really intrigued by her. And I don't know if anybody watched the movie Crazy Rich Indians. Does anybody watch that movie? If you did, do you remember the matriarch of that family? Exactly, that woman. She reminds me so much of her. She was a tough woman. She was mean to the girl that her son was going to marry, until you get to really understand her story. And it's almost exact like this. Like, look, these girls, they are brought in, they are victims of a system. You're brought in, you're very young, and there's a lot that you have no idea what you're walking into. The same thing happened to Princess Augusta. Don't forget, she never had a chance to even become queen. She never got the title queen. She didn't have the power. She was married to a drunkard. And of course, Parliament was putting pressure on her because the entire kingdom was hanging on the succession of the line that they needed an heir. They needed somebody who was going to become queen or was going to become king or queen. Otherwise, everything would be lost. Of course, the parliament was going to take over the country and all that. So there was a lot of pressure on her. She had to do everything she had to do to keep the monarchy going. Her son was crazy. I'm sorry to use that word, but her son had a mental illness, and that she wasn't even prepared for, but something that she found. And in the midst of all that, she still had to find him a bride who could bring forth a son or a child. They needed somebody. They needed a baby, right? So there was a lot of pressure on this woman that we had no idea. Of course, now we understand why she did all that. And don't forget, she also went through the same thing that Charlotte went through. And that's why Charlotte became the woman that we saw later. Like, it's not easy. Like, it is really, really not easy, the lives that these women led. And of course, we have to juggle a lot. We really have to juggle a lot in our lives. We have to carry a lot. So I guess at this point, I'm like, you know what? No judgment, right? We say that, but really no judgment. No judgment. Yeah, no judgment.
Okay, Abba, you were going to say something.
I was, yeah. So, I feel like with Princess Augusta, when you scratch beneath the surface, just below the surface of, okay, she's mean, she's tough, what you see is a woman who wouldn't let the younger women in her life just, give up. And so she would kind of almost bully you or taunt you. But when you began to stand up, then, with Lady Danbury, here you go, the title you want. And you realize that when Charlotte stood up and stepped into her power, there was a point at which Princess Augusta says, "Your Majesty." And she bows down. And I thought that was a powerful moment, acknowledging that, you know what, girlfriend, this is what I wanted. Somebody up and be what she needs to be for the monarchy. That part actually gave me goosebumps. So another really special part of
the word thank you, right? When she said thank you. That was,
and I think, at that point, she was ready to hand over to Queen Charlotte.
That was the point.
Yeah, she was ready to, you are ready now, girl, take over. Yeah.
Well, Abba, this has been a most fruitful conversation. I mean, incredibly fruitful. There's so many other topics that we can, kind of keep going into, singleness and midlife, the widowhood aspect, loneliness and all that, and all kinds of things. I'm gonna just kind of, because you actually are the convener of this, so I don't know if this was everything you envisioned it to be.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Topics that you wanted us to kind of touch on,
Well, you know what? This is where we open up the floor to anything else anybody wants to talk about. But I think what I love is that all four of those matriarchs, they showed up to life, as imperfect as they were, despite the challenges they faced, they showed up to life. And so for that, I'm inspired by them. They made their mistakes, sure, but they showed up to life. I just, I hope when they continue the series, I hope Queen Charlotte recognizes the beauty of Brimsley and recognizes the blessing she had in her Brimsley. That's the one thing I'm like, oh, Brimsley. I want them to tell us what happened to Reynolds as well.
I know. And Sister Abba, how those two were devoted. Brimsley was devoted to Her Majesty. There was nothing he wouldn't do for her. And of course, Reynolds was devoted to His Majesty. It's like they were really, their lives, they put their lives. I admired that. They were fighting. He was fighting for his man. He was fighting for his woman. It's like I love that, the devotion,
played a big role in kind of bringing them together at some point. Just, of course, a lot of things were happening between them two already. Their own emotions and all that was flaring up, but they really, I think the monarchy was literally in their hands, and the delivering of the letter and it not being delivered and all kinds of things, but they figured it out. And that was just powerful. And can I just say also, it was very interesting to see how the love affair between the king and the queen kind of foiled Brimsley and Reynolds also. Kind of gave them like a background to whatever was going on between them two. Elsie, your hand up.
There's another matriarch, and I'm forgetting her name now, but it's Penelope's mother. Lady Whistledown's mother. I forget her name in the face.
Yes.
She was another very intriguing character. I disliked her intensely.
Yes.
But as the story unfolded, you saw that that woman was a survivor. She did what she needed to do. When her husband's cousin, 15 times removed, swooped in or was trying to do his own shenanigans. She played him some card. I'm like, whoa, woman is shrewd. Again, one thing I like about this series is that the stories revolve around powerful women. Even Lady Whistledown, who is this, wallflower, as they referred to them back then. It's like she's not the diamond of the first cut. She doesn't fit the image of this tall, svelte, beautiful woman, whatever that looked like at that time. But she literally run that town just by her skills. I love that her voice, the narrator's voice was Julie Andrews, who's another powerful woman in her own right. But it's just that Shonda Rhimes, in different aspects of the story, is just putting women in a space where, like, listen, regardless of the era, we are here. And I loved how she did that. So I forget Penelope's mom's name, but that was another very interesting character who did, as reviled as she was from our end watching it, she was scheming, she did what she had to do for her family. And at the end, the question is whether, you could see she was also tempted, whether it was loneliness, like a man is finally paying attention to me. I may not trust the man. I think he was playing her, to be frank, but it looks like she may have been tempted for a brief moment and then, quickly dialed back in and go like, no, I got to keep an eye on things. And she quickly throws him under the bus, threw him under the bus in a spectacular move.
Wow. So I didn't see the first, story, so I'm a little lost in this particular.
Oh, you have to watch the series. Watch Bridgerton 1 and 2. Yeah. To get that.
And how about Alicia Keys' song, guys?
But before that, let Ruth go and then we'll talk about that. And I really did want us to also talk about the men, Lord Bute and his cohort, and what that meant in that society. But Ruthie, go ahead.
So this is a quick one. It's not about a character per se, but it's about the use of metaphors and euphemisms. So let's go back to the favorite. I want to be garden. You want to be garden. We all need to be garden.
My garden is in bloom.
Exactly. So
garden is in bloom.
So we're all tickled by it somewhat. I think we are. My question is, so what do we gain in using those euphemisms? And actually, have we stopped using them? If we, okay, so check us out. We're, a lot of us midlifers in the room.
Woman.
How exactly would we have that conversation with our girlfriends? Which analogy would we use, or would we just come out and say, girl, bam?
I need a little bit. I need to have some.
But
and we don't use those euphemisms anymore.
We do.
We do.
I think we do.
How do I know?
I think with our
Am I
tightest,
getting some?
maybe with our tightest, like the tightest person. But I think in many societies there's still, okay, so I'm Jamaican, so we just say it how it is, right? But I think in many societies, including Ghana, there's a little reticence. People hold back in just spilling the whole thing out. So
somebody
go for it,
said
girls.
bam bam.
How do you say it in Jamaica?
What's that?
No.
No, it's a Lord me there is long time me not get some. Me need some of that.
But even then, they're not saying what it is, though. You're not
No,
saying
we
it.
know.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, we
Yeah.
we just know, we just know what it is. Yeah.
But do you? But do we share? I mean,
no, we don't.
Do people share as much as we think we do?
What do I say? A very, very transparent moment.
We share
all the time, but I think we do. I have a particular girlfriend that we go there. Her and I go there. Sometimes during that period of the month when you're just one time, I remember, and you guys are gonna laugh, but hey, we're all sister friends here, so let's just go with it. I remember sitting on the bus in New York, and every bump that the bus gave me, I would feel something. So I grabbed my phone and I texted her and I said, yo, something weird is going on. The bus is going, and just the bus going bumpy. I need something, like something. And we just bust out laughing. And she's like, oh my God, the bus is giving you feelings. I'm like, no, the bumps in the road are giving my under some nice
feelings. Yeah.
So we talk about it with particular people. I wouldn't have exactly picked up the phone and called just anybody, but with particular people. It's not a conversation that can be had in like just open space like that. And you could see it even in that era, like they were like, I'm feeling guilty. I don't even want to accept that I'm feeling it. What's going on here?
Yeah.
I want to tell you, but I can't,
Yeah, Miss Ruth, Zoe. So I think, Brené Brown, I think shares something which I think is true, is that when you want to share your most vulnerable things, right, you have to choose your audience.
Yes.
Somebody who has earned the right to hear your story or that part of your story, and somebody who is wise, will keep your confidence. Because the other truth is that there's some people who don't seem to have boundaries, and they'll post things on social media, and we're all like, oh, are they, what's wrong with them, and so on. So I think we should verbalize these things. I think we should really judiciously choose the audience.
Yeah, with the right crowd for sure.
With the appropriate crowd, yeah.
I have a question for you though. So what were the other euphemisms that you noticed aside from the, gardening? I'm sure there were other, things that we could pick up on.
Sorry, who were you asking?
I was asking you because when we
started,
you said there were more, so I figured you probably.
So there was a rambling one. What's his name? Ledger and Agatha.
Yeah, Agatha.
Are we going for a ramble?
Yep.
And then if you notice, they started talking about the birds and the bees, but they didn't say birds and bees, but they started describing them. So it was Shonda Rhimes' way of saying, yeah, we're going there to talk about the birds and the bees, but we're going to use polite language to sort of get. It was all very cute and subtle.
Yes. And also, what is Queen Charlotte? I was like, Queen Charlotte, you need to give credit where credit is due. She was telling her children how she used to draw she draws the positions and all that, and that she doesn't know if her children even know, you know what she said. Yeah, and I'm like, you didn't draw it. It was
somebody drew it for Danbury who drew. Yep.
Yeah. I'm like, you're not bragging to your kids as if you knew what to do. You didn't know what to do either.
Yeah.
That was funny. I was like, are we like that? Yes, we do.
Yeah.
Took credit. That was fun.
Yeah. And one thing I also, in the beginning, when I started watching it, from how they started, that whole chaotic, that disaster of a wedding night and all that they had. And then later when I realized they had 13 children, I'm like, how did those 13 children come about? It's like,
even days.
I'm like, oh,
George was busy. I think they
were busy.
Days after a while, they scratched that out.
Yeah, they said one of those sweet moments. No more even days, no more or just days. I love that.
Yeah. That's where even Agatha Danbury, because Charlotte, she was 7 and 10 years old.
Yeah, 17.
Right? And she didn't know anything about. She didn't even know what the mechanics were about. How to have babies. And Agatha Danbury got charcoal and a piece of paper and drew it. So actually showed her what had to happen. So thank God again for Sister Freds.
Yeah.
That's what I was saying, that she was telling her children a story, but she said she did it. I was like, girl, you didn't know what to do.
No, somebody else initiated her, and of course she learned. Yeah. She became a master. She had 15 children. That's a lot. Yeah. A lot of children.
And whatchamacallit? Was somebody going to say?
Marjorie is saying something. So
yes.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Yes, I was going to say that when we take it back to the other Bridgerton series, we realized that when Lady Bridgerton's daughter was getting married, although that was much later, she also did not know about sexual relations. And so we should have that in perspective, that back in the day, it wasn't easy to talk about things like that. Things have evolved, things have changed. And so we are much more fluid with our conversations now than our great grandfathers and mothers, ancestors were.
That is so true. Yeah.
And truth be told, even now, people have difficulty having these conversations with their children, right? I mean, my mother was very avant-garde, and we had the conversation, age appropriate, of course, but I was 6 or 7 years old. Unheard of in Ghanaian terms, I think, back then. But, we still, I don't know whether it's culture and the way we approach conversations, that, you don't say some things. But you also find that when people are in their comfortable spaces with people they trust, they let loose. And say whatever it is that they want to say. And sometimes you go like, wait, I didn't realize that, this matriarch that I know, this auntie so-and-so, or this grandma so-and-so in our extended family, when she's sitting with her age mates and the way she, you see a different side of her. And I think as women, we hold ourselves, depending on the situations in which we find ourselves, there's a certain dignity that is expected in how we process anything, whether it's grief, whether it's joy, whether it's sensitive conversations. There's a cultural expectation on how to have that. But there needs to be an outlet and a safe space where you can be real with, your girlfriend. And the other thing I wanted to mention that I think it would be interesting to talk about is the price each of these matriarchs had to pay.
Yes.
For the choices they had to make. So for Queen Charlotte, for example, the price she had to pay was the loss of her relationship with her children. And it doesn't sound like she ever regained it. And she was like, well, I think I was an excellent mother. They said you were an excellent, you were our queen. You were not our mother.
She wasn't.
That's it.
There was a scene where she hugged the son towards the end. So I was hopeful that it meant the beginning of some kind of a repair. Hopeful. you know.
My question to Elsie was that a warranted loss? For example, that part of her not being close to her children, was that something that could have been prevented? Because in my opinion, I thought you probably could have.
I think
so was that
there was a
something
lot of energy. Yeah, sorry to cut you off. I think there was a lot of energy being put into the husband. Yeah. You see, it's that like Papa was saying, if you had a child who is sick, you put more energy into that child, and then your other kids will feel neglected, which you are not trying to neglect them, but there was just a lot of energy that she was putting into her marriage, her husband, that, you know, that made it, you know, her neglect her children. Because the sad part is, she says something, her daughter says something that broke my heart. She said, "Did you even know I had a miscarriage?" And she said, "I didn't know that." So they didn't have that relationship for her to even go to the mother. You know, this is what, and she will hold her, you know, they didn't have that.
I think it's because Charlotte was queen, you know, and Charlotte was only queen because George, she was sort of in control of what was happening with George. And so
she had to take over.
She just had to take over. Unlike Princess Augusta, or you know, unlike the other, when you have someone who is ill. But you saw the dynamics of the way people kept on going to Princess Augusta when, you know, your son, there's a problem. So Charlotte just needed to take control. And unfortunately, it's a huge price she had to pay. But if she wasn't in control and anything, you know, happened to George, then George loses his crown and the whole, you know, the whole thing collapses. So unfortunately, she just had to focus and with that, and with 15 children, I mean, there's no way she could focus on her husband and focus on the children. So it will become nannies and tutors and things. And unfortunately, but as you're saying, hopefully with a new baby, and there'll be a time that they will kind of start rebuilding that relationship. But it must have been, she just had to make a decision and move forward.
Absolutely.
On that.
And I think if we translate it, to answer
over each other.
So I was just going to answer the question you asked, Zoe.
Yes.
I was going to say that, was it a warranted cost? I don't think she had the choice. You know, she was between a rock and a hard place, and she did what she had to do. And if we translate it to our times, each of us has a hard decision to make at some point. And I think that's where having a tribe to help you do what you need to do is important. So that when you make the hard decisions, there's somebody there to catch some of the slack. So for example, many mothers have to hand over their children to somebody to raise while they go out and work. It's not an easy decision to make. And there's a lot of guilt in it. And there are many people who have closer relationships with the people who raised them, as opposed to their mothers who were working outside the home to help. Think if it was a single mom, for example. So some people would have the resentment towards, in their child perspective, towards their adult parents who made some tough decisions. But give that same child a few years and life experience under the belt, and suddenly the perspective
They begin
changes.
to appreciate,
And then you understand why, you know, why your parents made the decisions they did. And then there's a certain forgiveness that comes
with it,
later on. Your young self might still be hurting and smarting and would have missed some stuff. But when I think of the way many of us were raised, for example, well, there was more than just our mom and our dad. There was the aunties, the grannies, the uncles and the aunties. So and then we were not royalty, and we were not being raised under the eye of the whole world. You understand? And so there has to be some give and take, and perspective comes in a little later, you know, as we grow, and you realize these were not easy decisions, and you're a bit more forgiving of your parents or whoever it is, now that you understand. The adults, now that you understand. And it's not any easy. I think for every decision we need to make today, it may not be as monumental as what we've seen. Obviously, it's on film and it's, you know, blown on it's on a much bigger stage. And so I think what we should consider doing is having the kind of tribe around us to help us live with the consequences of the decisions we have to take. And it's very reciprocal, so that, you know, you're the auntie in your best friend's children's life because she's gone a lot. You know, you're that third voice for the children in your extended circle, so that if they can't go to their parents, you are reachable, etc. Those are the things we have to intentionally put in place.
Yeah. And can I say something about Queen Charlotte? She was a little complex. You know, one thing that I realized when her grandchild died, I didn't see a whole lot of sympathy. Yeah, you know, I didn't. Yeah, sorrows and pain. So it's like, what does that mean? It's like, get up and go. It's like, okay, I didn't get that part. It's like, you know, she became too steely. I mean, no judgment, but it's like, okay, that part I didn't quite get.
Well, honestly, isn't it only in the last 10 years or so that's Brené Brown is one person who has helped usher this in, but us embracing our vulnerability. And even so, there's many people, all of us are probably still learning to embrace aspects of vulnerability. For many people, tears means you're weak. You know? And so she had to kind of deal with it the best way she could, right? Which is to just steel herself. Otherwise, it was scary. And I think I just want to say something just to buttress off what Elsie had said. You know, it reminds me of that principle in economics. Whenever you make a choice, there's something called an opportunity cost, something you do, you know, and because time is finite and opportunities are finite, whenever you make a choice to go down a certain path, then always the other path you didn't go on or the things you couldn't do. And there's a saying, a psychologist, I forget his name, said this: none of us escapes childhood unscathed. Meaning that we all go through childhood and receive some kind of wound. I think us goes through adulthood unscathed. And so the point is, you will make choices and you will make mistakes, but this is a good time to bring up the concept of self-compassion for all of us, you know, and the characters. All you can do is pick up from here and say, okay, where do I go from here to be better to myself and my loved ones?
Yeah,
that was the message.
I think Charlotte actually did that. I mean, when she does the hugging, and her son is actually quite surprised. And so for the first hug, he's just like, okay, my mother is hugging me. That feels weird. And then the second hug, you can actually finally see him going, well, I guess we can try this. We can pick up from here. You know, we can do something about this, and that all is not lost. And of course, we all want to talk about the music that came with it. And then after that, I'm going to hand over to our convener, Agatha, and then she will close us out. But what did you guys feel about the music that came with all of it? I was quite surprised at the Beyonce one. I mean, I don't like the song.
She's always had the music. It's just that this time she showed Alicia Keys. But if you go back to Bridgerton, she's had all this music in there from the first one. But this time we just picked up because Alicia Keys was at the end of it. But
and was Beyonce in there too?
Yeah, in the first one it's in there.
Oh, I didn't. Well,
yeah, when our prince in the first one, reggae, when he was dancing, if you go back to watch that, listen to the music. Yeah.
I mean, I think that this time, even Alicia Keys and what her music represents, I think is significant. You know, songs like This Girl Is on Fire. And there's actually a song she has, which I encourage everyone to go listen to. It's called Brand New Me. It's not a new song, not even in the movie, but I use it sometimes when I'm doing therapy with my patients because it's about setting boundaries and sometimes changing yourself, even in the context of a difficult relationship, and evolving and growing into your best self. So Alicia Keys herself, and then of course there's the one about I'm a superwoman. Yes, I am, even though I'm a mess, you know. So I think Alicia Keys herself represents a lot of the desirable characteristics that Shonda wanted to put out there. And If I Ain't Got You, Babe, I think whatever the song was called, I looked at the lyrics and I think it's about following after that love, right? That pure love that you desire, which Charlotte certainly did. I think that I love that Shonda put together an all-girl orchestra. The conductor was a Black Vanessa. It was really cool to see women of all shapes, sizes, colors, hairstyles come together, you know, and perform this amazing song, you know, and they did it so well. It brought a smile to my face. Yeah. Yeah. So I loved it. I loved it all. And guys, we've spent 2 amazing
Yeah.
it just passed by like this. This was beyond what I was even hoping for. And I thank you all for your comments. I enjoyed watching the movie, but I also really, really enjoyed this discussion. And when the next one comes out, we'll meet again, God willing.